Eli Vance had never expected anything extraordinary to happen on Ta Vega IV, a small, remote colony on the edge of the galaxy. It was a place where quiet days blended into one another, and nothing disrupted the regular hum of life. Eli was just a mechanic, skilled with machines, able to fix anything from faulty engines to broken circuits. He was the go-to guy when something broke, but he never imagined his life would change in the blink of an eye. The sky over Ta Vega IV was as clear as ever when the object appeared. At first, it was just a streak of light, barely visible against the pale blue sky. But then, it grew larger, brighter, and suddenly it was clear. It was coming straight for them. The colony's alert system blared into action, but Eli barely had time to react before the massive object crashed to the ground just outside his workshop. The ground trembled with the impact, and Eli was thrown off his feet, his heart racing. He stood up quickly, wiping dirt from his face, his mind already racing to what it might be. He grabbed his tools without hesitation, running out into the chaos as workers and scientists scrambled to assess the situation. Eli's heart pounded, but his curiosity pushed him forward. This wasn't just a typical meteor strike. No, this was something different, something that might not just be a pile of debris. He had to see it for himself. As he reached the crash site, he saw what had fallen from the sky. A colossal, metal figure, crumpled and twisted in an unnatural way. The object was large, easily the size of a building. It looked like nothing Eli had ever seen before. At first glance, it seemed like a massive machine, a guardian of sorts. Its body was sleek, metallic, but covered in strange patterns of glowing symbols. Its eyes, or what could be eyes, were dark voids that pulsed faintly, as if trying to send a signal. Eli knew better than anyone that many machines could look intimidating, but with enough tinkering, they could be fixed. This was beyond his expertise. Still, he felt a strange pull, a compulsion to get closer. He wasn't sure what drew him in. Perhaps it was the sheer mystery of the thing, or maybe the quiet sense of intelligence that seemed to emanate from it. Ignoring the warnings of others, Eli carefully approached the wreckage, his mind racing with thoughts of what it could be. Was it some kind of new military tech? An alien artifact? The more he studied it, the more questions piled up. What species would design something like this? How had it ended up on a planet like Ta Vega IV? And most intriguing of all, how could it still be active? As he crouched beside the machine, Eli's eyes caught the faintest flicker of light in one of the Guardian's eyes. His heart skipped a beat. He had expected the machine to be inoperative, a simple crash landing that left it beyond repair. But no, this was something else entirely. His mind raced. What if this wasn't just a broken machine? What if it was still functional? He reached for his tools, the excitement starting to creep in. As a mechanic, there was nothing more thrilling than bringing something thought to be useless back to life. The challenge was irresistible. Before he could even start disassembling the device, something extraordinary happened. The machine let out a low mechanical groan, and then its voice, deep and distorted, yet somehow clear, whispered his name. Eli. His breath caught in his throat. It wasn't a mechanical glitch or an accidental noise. It was a word. His name. A name he had never expected to hear from a machine. His hands froze, the tool he had been reaching for hanging limply in his grip. The Guardian was alive, or at least it was conscious. Eli stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. His mind raced as the weight of the situation set in. He was standing in front of something alive. This wasn't just a simple fix-up job. This was beyond anything he'd ever encountered. After a long pause, Eli slowly began to speak, his voice shaking with awe and a touch of disbelief. Who are you? The machine's eye flickered again, its voice now clearer, though still faint and strained. I am Unit 7 Core. Eli's mind raced, but the only thing he could say was a whisper, more to himself than to the machine. You're alive. For the first time, The Guardian's large frame seemed to shift, as if responding to his question. A quiet hum resonated from the body, and for the briefest moment, Eli felt something strange, something not mechanical, but human, come from it. He stepped back, his mind overwhelmed with curiosity, wonder, and a growing sense of responsibility. This wasn't just a machine, it was something far greater. And Eli knew, deep down, that nothing in his life would ever be the same again. Eli couldn't tear his eyes away from the massive, imposing figure before him. Unit 7 Core's body was made of smooth, dark metal, with glowing symbols etched into its surface. The sheer size of it was overwhelming, but there was something almost human in the way it moved, even if it was sluggish from its crash landing. Its broken voice still echoed in Eli's mind, but he needed answers. What was this thing? And why had it spoken his name? The silence between them stretched for a few moments before Eli found his voice again. Unit 7 Core, are you a soldier? A weapon? The Guardian's eyes flickered, and Eli could feel the air around them grow tense. Then, in a low mechanical hum, the Guardian answered, its voice more defined now. I was a protector. My mission was to defend. The words were slow, deliberate, as if the machine itself was piecing together its own thoughts. Eli's heart raced. Protector. Defender. Those words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. But defender of what? A planet? A species? Or something else entirely? He needed to know more, but it was hard to understand everything that was happening. It was just so much to take in. This wasn't like fixing a broken ship or rewiring a faulty generator. This was something else. I can help you, Eli said, more to himself than to the machine. I can fix you, get you back to full function. The machine's head tilted slightly, its glowing eyes narrowing as if studying Eli. You would repair me. The words were filled with curiosity, and something about the way it asked made Eli feel like he wasn't just talking to a machine anymore. There was an intelligence there, alive, aware, maybe even willing to learn. I'm a mechanic, Eli said, trying to remain calm despite the overwhelming feeling in his chest. It's what I do. I can make you whole again. You don't have to be like this, damaged and broken. The Guardian's body shifted, the sounds of machinery whirring softly as it adjusted. Slowly, a small compartment in its arm opened up, revealing a strange, alien interface. It was clear that it wasn't just going to let Eli start working on it without understanding what he was doing. The technology was beyond anything he had ever seen, and the thought of attempting to repair something like this both terrified and thrilled him. Eli took a step forward, hesitating as he reached out to the exposed interface. I've never seen anything like this before, he muttered, mostly to himself. But I can try. As his fingers brushed against the interface, something unexpected happened. The Guardian's hand twitched, and Eli felt a pulse of energy, like a jolt of electricity, course through the air. He stepped back, startled, but the Guardian's voice echoed again, calm yet commanding. Proceed. There was no fear in the machine's tone, no hesitation. It was as if it trusted him, trusted Eli with something far greater than a simple repair. The thought lingered in Eli's mind, and for the first time since the crash, he felt a strange connection to this entity, his guardian. He was no longer just fixing a broken machine. No, this was something more. This was an opportunity to understand something unknown, to build something together. Eli took a deep breath and knelt beside the interface, his tools at the ready. His fingers moved with a newfound confidence, working through the alien tech with surprising ease. As he worked, the machine's systems hummed softly, the patterns in its metal skin shifting and changing. It was almost as if it were adapting to him, to his touch. Minutes turned into hours as Eli carefully navigated the complexities of the Guardian's intricate system. Slowly, he began to notice small changes in the machine's behavior. Its once sluggish movements became more fluid, more natural. Its eyes brightened, their deep voids beginning to take on an almost human-like quality, as though they were starting to focus on him, study him. Eli didn't know how long he had been working, but the sense of accomplishment grew with each passing minute. He was doing it. He was bringing the machine back to life. And with each spark of energy he restored, he realized that he wasn't just fixing a broken robot. He was awakening something alive. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Eli stood back. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he wiped his brow, exhausted but triumphant. He had done it. The Guardian, now fully powered, stood tall before him. Its eyes flickered once again, then focused on Eli. There was a quiet moment, and then, in a voice much clearer than before, the Guardian spoke. "Thank you." Eli stared at it, a mix of emotions flooding his chest. The machine, the Guardian, had just thanked him. It was a simple phrase, but it held more weight than anything he had ever heard. It was gratitude, real and raw, something Eli hadn't expected. But now, more than ever, he realized that this wasn't just a machine. It was a sentient being, a life form that had chosen to bond with him. Eli's heart pounded in his chest as he looked up at the towering figure before him. This was only the beginning. Eli stepped back, his hands trembling slightly as he looked up at Unit 7 core. The Guardian had come alive, its dark eyes glowing with a new intensity. It wasn't just a machine anymore. It was something more, something that Eli couldn't quite understand yet, but he knew it had a purpose beyond anything he had ever encountered. The weight of that thought sat heavily on his chest. Whatever was happening here was far beyond simple repairs. He was now responsible for something that could change everything. For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them crackled with tension. Eli felt like he was standing before something ancient, something that had witnessed the rise and fall of entire civilizations. It was a humbling realization. "So, what happens now?" Eli finally asked, his voice breaking the silence. He wasn't sure who he was asking, the Guardian or himself. "Are you just going to stand there, or?" Unit 7 core's gaze shifted downward, the lights in its eyes dimming for a moment, as if reflecting on Eli's question. It spoke slowly, each word deliberate, as though it was choosing them with great care. "I was built to protect," it said, its voice still low, but filled with a strange sense of purpose. "My creators, they gave me a task, but that task is lost. My people are gone." Eli's mind raced. Creators, people, this thing had a history, one that didn't just start with the crash on Ta Vega IV. But whatever that history was, it was lost. The Guardian didn't know its past, and that meant it had no clear purpose. Not anymore. The silence stretched again, but this time it was more contemplative. Eli watched as Unit 7 core moved its arm, the metal surface shifting and creaking as though it was adjusting to its newly repaired form. It seemed thoughtful, and there was a flicker of something in its eyes, something Eli couldn't quite place. Was it doubt? "If you were built to protect," Eli said cautiously, "why are you here? Why did you crash?" The Guardian's head tilted, its glowing eyes narrowing slightly, as if trying to recall a long-forgotten memory. "I do not know." The words were a strange mix of confusion and certainty. "I was on a mission, but the mission failed. I was lost. And now, I do not know what I am meant to do." Eli stood there, contemplating the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just about fixing machines. It was about helping an entity find its purpose. And right now, that was a purpose that had been torn away by time, by war, by the fall of an entire civilization. But what if Eli could help it find that purpose again? What if together they could figure out what Unit 7 core was meant for in this new world? "You don't have to figure it out alone," Eli said, his voice firming with newfound resolve. "I don't know what your creators intended, but maybe you don't have to follow their path. Maybe you can choose your own." The Guardian's head shifted again, and for the first time, Eli saw something resembling understanding in its eyes, A flicker of recognition. I can choose. The question was soft, uncertain. It was as if the Guardian was just beginning to understand the concept of choice. Eli nodded. Yeah, you don't have to be bound by your creator's orders. You can protect the things you believe in. You can help those who need it. You can choose your purpose, just like I've chosen mine. Unit 7 Core stood still for a long moment, its glowing eyes searching Eli's face. There was a strange stillness, as if the machine was pondering Eli's words. For a machine that had once been an instrument of war, it was now grappling with the concept of self-determination. It was a profound shift, and Eli realized just how much power he had given this being, simply by helping it to heal. Finally, the Guardian spoke again, this time with more conviction. I will protect, it said, but not for my creators, not for a war that has ended. I will protect what remains. I will protect life. The words settled in the air between them, resonating with something deep inside Eli. It wasn't just a machine declaring its mission. It was a being choosing a new path. And in that moment, Eli knew that the journey they were about to take wouldn't just change the Guardian's life. It would change his own as well. But before he could respond, a voice crackled through his comlink. Eli glanced up, startled. It was Earth Command. Vance, report in. We've detected unusual activity near your location. What's going on? Eli's heart raced. He had to think quickly. Earth Command wasn't ready for Unit 7 Core. They wouldn't understand what this Guardian truly was. Eli's mind worked fast, calculating his next move. Everything's fine here, Eli said, his voice steady. Just a minor equipment malfunction. I've got it under control. He glanced at Unit 7 Core, who stood silently, watching Eli with those intense, glowing eyes. Eli had no idea what was coming next, but one thing was clear. He couldn't let Earth Command take this Guardian. Not without understanding its true potential, not without knowing what it could become. The choices they made from here on out would determine everything. Eli's heart pounded in his chest as he stared at the comlink, still holding the transmit button as Earth Command's message crackled in his ear. He had told them everything was fine, but in the back of his mind, he knew this wasn't going to stay quiet for long. The presence of Unit 7 Core, the massive, sentient machine, would eventually draw attention, and not the kind they could brush off with a simple explanation. Vance, we're sending a team to your location, came the voice over the comm. We need full access to the crash site. Protocols require immediate inspection of alien tech. Eli's mind raced. He couldn't allow that. If Earth Command got their hands on Unit 7 Core, they wouldn't treat it as an ally. They'd see it as a weapon, a potential threat to be controlled or neutralized. The thought made him sick to his stomach. This Guardian wasn't a threat. It was learning, growing, finding its own path. Roger that, Command, Eli said, trying to keep his voice steady. He quickly glanced at the towering figure of Unit 7 Core. The Guardian, whose glowing eyes had softened, was now standing tall, its posture more commanding than ever. Eli could see the confusion in its expression. This wasn't a mission it was trained for, not one it could understand. It was as though the machine could sense Eli's rising panic. Unit 7 Core, Eli said quietly. We need to move now. Earth Command won't understand. The Guardian's gaze fixed on him, its massive frame unmoving. Where do you want me to go? The Guardian asked, its voice still low, but now tinged with the same uncertainty Eli had heard before. Eli paused, considering his options. He couldn't let the Guardian get caught in the crossfire. Not when it was finally starting to find its purpose. We're going to head to the outskirts of the colony, towards the industrial zone. It's a secluded area, a place no one would think to look. Unit 7 Core nodded slowly, its movements now more fluid than before. Eli couldn't help but marvel at how much progress the Guardian had made in such a short time. It wasn't just a machine anymore. It was something far more complicated, something alive. Eli quickly packed up his tools and secured his comlink, leaving the workshop behind. He had to act fast. As he and the Guardian moved towards the outskirts, Eli felt an eerie stillness settle over him. The colony was quiet, but not for long. Earth Command had already sent their team, and it was only a matter of time before they arrived. Just as they reached the edge of the industrial zone, Eli saw the first signs of Earth Command's arrival, a small shuttle descending in the distance. Panic surged through him. He looked up at Unit 7 Core. The Guardian stood perfectly still, waiting for further instructions. Eli knew this would be the turning point. He had to keep them both safe. Turning quickly, he said, "Unit 7 Core, I need you to stay hidden. Don't let them find you. If they come after you, if they try to take you, I won't let that happen. But we need to be smart about this." The Guardian's eyes flickered as it processed Eli's words. It seemed to understand. Slowly, it lowered itself behind an old storage building, out of sight from the shuttle approaching overhead. Eli held his breath as Earth Command's shuttle landed with a soft thud, its doors opening. A group of soldiers in military fatigues stepped out, followed by an officer who immediately approached Eli. "Vance," the officer said curtly, "we've been sent to inspect the crash site. You're in violation of protocol by keeping alien technology on site without proper clearance." "I've already reported the crash," Eli said smoothly, trying to hide the nervousness in his voice. "Everything's under control. The wreckage is still unstable. There's nothing left to inspect." The officer eyed him suspiciously. "You're sure about that?" "I'm sure," Eli replied, standing firm. "There's nothing left for you to see here. The damage was minimal." The officer stared at him for a long moment before nodding. "We'll need you to step aside. We have clearance to retrieve any findings." Eli could feel the tension in the air, the weight of their authority pressing down on him. But he couldn't let them get any closer to the Guardian. Not now. Not when it was just beginning to understand itself. Suddenly, there was a low hum in the distance. Eli's heart skipped a beat. It was the unmistakable sound of Unit 7 Core powering up, its massive frame shifting from behind the building where it had been hiding. "Wait," Eli said, his voice sharp. He had to act quickly before things escalated. "You don't need to go any further. I'm telling you, there's nothing here for you to find." The officer's gaze hardened. "Step aside, Vance, or we'll be forced to take you into custody." In that moment, Eli knew what he had to do. He couldn't back down. Not now, not when the Guardian was this close to discovering who it really was. Before the officer could respond, Eli pressed a button on his comlink, activating the hidden relay he had set up earlier. The signal would scramble Earth Command sensors, buying him just enough time to get Unit 7 Core to safety. But the countdown was already ticking. The next few moments would determine everything. With his heart racing, Eli took a deep breath, bracing for what came next. The comlink hummed as Eli watched Earth Command soldiers shift uncomfortably at the sound of the scrambling signal. He could tell the officer was growing more agitated, sensing something wasn't right. "Vance, what the hell is going on?" the officer barked. "This is a direct order." Eli didn't have time to waste. He took a deep breath, the adrenaline coursing through his veins, and made his move. "I said, there's nothing here for you. If you want to continue pushing this, you'll find out soon enough." The officer stepped closer, his hand hovering near his sidearm. "Don't test us, Vance." But before things could escalate, the ground trembled slightly, and a massive shadow loomed over them. Unit 7 Core had emerged from its hiding spot, its towering form stepping into view. Its glowing eyes swept over the soldiers, a low mechanical hum filling the air as it powered up, fully functional once more. The sight of the alien Guardian sent a wave of shock and awe through the soldiers. The officer froze for a moment, his face pale. "What in the hell is that thing?" Eli stood tall, his eyes never leaving the officers. "This is Unit 7 Core. It's not a weapon. It's a living being." The officer's eyes narrowed in disbelief. "A living being? You've got to be kidding me." You've been hiding this thing. You have no idea what kind of danger you're putting us in." Eli shook his head. "You're wrong. This isn't some weapon. It's a protector, a guardian. And it's not here to harm anyone." But the officer wasn't listening. "You don't know what you're dealing with," he snapped, turning to the soldiers. "Form a perimeter. We need to take it down. Now." Before Eli could react, the soldiers began moving toward Unit 7 Core, weapons raised. Eli's heart pounded in his chest. This was it, the moment where everything could go wrong. The Guardian was no threat, but Earth Command wouldn't see it that way. They only saw an alien weapon, something to be controlled, neutralized, and exploited. "Wait," Eli shouted, stepping in front of the Guardian. "Stop. You don't understand." But it was too late. The soldiers had already aimed their weapons, their targeting systems locking onto Unit 7 Core. Eli could see the fear in their eyes, the fear of something they couldn't comprehend. But what they didn't know was that this machine, this Guardian, had already begun to evolve. It wasn't bound by its original purpose anymore. It had found its own. Unit 7 Core's body shifted with a swift, graceful movement. The Guardian's massive hand extended, and with a single motion, it disarmed the closest soldier, knocking the weapon out of his hands. The force was enough to send the soldier stumbling backward, his legs shaking as he fell to the ground. The other soldiers hesitated, unsure of what to do. Unit 7 Core's voice rang out, clear and firm. "I do not wish to harm you, but I will protect those who need it." Eli could see the moment of hesitation in the soldiers' eyes. They were trained for combat, but this wasn't a conventional threat. They were face to face with something entirely new, something that defied all their training and protocols. They had no way to fight a being like this. The officer, still in shock, raised his hand, signaling his team to fall back. "We need to report this. Command needs to know about this abomination." Eli stood his ground, his voice steady. "It's not an abomination. It's a sentient being. A protector." The officer shot him a hard look. "You're making a mistake, Vance. This thing is dangerous." "Not to us," Eli countered, his voice unwavering. "But to you. If you don't back off, yes, it will protect itself and me, and it won't hesitate." The tension in the air was palpable as the soldiers took a step back. The officer, clearly at a loss, glanced at his team. "We'll need backup. This isn't over." But Eli wasn't about to let them take Unit 7 Core. He knew that this was the moment when everything would change. Earth Command could never understand. They would never accept this Guardian as anything other than a threat, and he couldn't let them take it, not when it was still finding its purpose. Unit 7 Core's glowing eyes softened as it turned its head toward Eli, its body still poised and ready, but now with a quiet understanding in its movements. "What do you want me to do?" it asked, its voice tinged with an almost human-like curiosity. Eli glanced up at the towering machine, a lump forming in his throat. This was it, the beginning of something bigger than either of them. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He could run, keep hiding, and hope Earth Command would back off. Or he could do something that would change everything. He took a deep breath and made his choice. "Let's go," Eli said, his voice resolute. "We're leaving, and we're not looking back." Unit 7 Core nodded, its body shifting into a more defensive stance as it prepared to follow Eli. The officer and his team watched in stunned silence, knowing that whatever happened next, they had lost control of the situation. But Eli and the Guardian had already made their decision. It was no longer just about survival. It was about something deeper, something that neither of them had fully understood before. A bond had been formed, and Eli was ready to see where it would take them. Eli and Unit 7 Core moved quickly, keeping low as they made their way through the industrial zone. The sounds of Earth Command's shuttle still echoed in the distance, but they had a head start. The Guardian's massive frame was an imposing sight, but Eli trusted it to keep its movements controlled, hidden. For now, They needed to make it to the old research facility, just outside the colony, a place where they could regroup and figure out their next move. The journey was tense, the threat of pursuit hanging over them like a storm cloud. Eli's mind raced, and his pulse quickened as he thought about what had just transpired. Earth Command wasn't going to give up. They would be relentless. He couldn't keep running forever. But with the Guardian by his side, he felt a strange sense of hope, as though for the first time, he wasn't completely alone in this fight. As they approached the facility, Eli motioned for Unit 7 Core to stop. The old building loomed ahead, a crumbling structure long abandoned by the colony's researchers. It wasn't much, but it was secluded, far enough from the main colony to give them some breathing room. Eli had spent some time there over the years, maintaining old equipment that no one else bothered to fix. It was the perfect place to lay low, at least for a little while. "Stay here for now," Eli whispered to the Guardian, his voice tight with urgency. "I'll see if it's safe inside." Unit 7 Core nodded silently, its glowing eyes scanning the area as it crouched down, blending into the shadows. Eli took a deep breath and entered the building, his footsteps echoing in the silence. The interior was dark, with a faint hum of malfunctioning equipment in the background. Old computers blinked weakly, as though barely clinging to life, but Eli knew they were beyond repair. Still, he moved swiftly, checking the security systems, ensuring the perimeter was secure. After a few minutes of searching, Eli found what he was looking for, an old communications relay that could get a message out to anyone who might be able to help them. It wasn't much, but it would buy them some time. He quickly set to work, his hand shaking as he typed in the old access codes. The system flickered to life, the familiar interface appearing on the screen. But as Eli prepared to send a message, he hesitated. Who could he trust? Earth Command was already after them, and any message he sent might be intercepted. They were trapped in a dangerous game, and Eli couldn't afford to make a wrong move. He rubbed his temples, frustration bubbling to the surface. There had to be a solution. They needed allies, someone who understood what Unit 7 Core truly was. Someone who wouldn't see the Guardian as a weapon to be contained, but as a sentient being capable of great things. Eli knew he had to reach out to someone, but who? Meanwhile, outside, Unit 7 Core stood motionless, scanning the area with its advanced sensors. It had grown more alert over the past hours, aware of its surroundings, more attuned to the world around it. Though it remained silent, there was an unspoken connection between Eli and the Guardian. They were two beings thrown together by fate, and each was beginning to understand the other in ways that transcended simple language. Inside the facility, Eli finally made a decision. He would contact the only person he could trust, someone from his past who had always been skeptical of Earth Command's intentions. Dr. Lena Martinez, an exobiologist who had worked with Eli years ago. She'd always been interested in the mysteries of alien life, and Eli knew she had the kind of mind that wouldn't jump to conclusions. She would understand the significance of what had happened. With a deep breath, Eli sent the message, the data scrambled and encrypted to ensure that it wouldn't be traced. It was a long shot, but it was the only option left. As he hit send, the weight of what he had just done sank in. There was no turning back now. As Eli stepped away from the console, a soft click echoed from the doorway. He spun around, heart in his throat. There, standing in the threshold, was Unit 7 Core, its eyes glowing brighter than before. It had sensed something, or perhaps it had simply felt the urgency in Eli's movements. The Guardian was attuned to his every action now, like a shadow that never left his side. "We can't stay here long," Eli said, his voice low. "Earth Command will be looking for us soon. I need to figure out our next move." Unit 7 Core's voice, calm yet unwavering, came from the dark corner of the room. "I will protect you, Eli. I will not allow harm to come to you." Eli nodded, feeling the weight of the words settle over him. This wasn't just about protecting himself anymore. It was about something greater, something that had grown between them, A bond forged not by technology or duty, but by choice. The sound of distant engines reached their ears. Eli's eyes snapped to the window. They were getting closer. Earth Command wouldn't give up easily, and the longer they stayed here, the more likely it was that they would be found. "We're running out of time," Eli said, turning to Unit 7 Core. "We need to get out of here. Fast." The Guardian stepped forward, its massive form filling the doorway. "Where will we go?" Eli paused for a moment, then made up his mind. He knew that Earth Command wouldn't stop hunting them, but there was a place where they could find refuge, a place where they could figure out what Unit 7 Core's purpose truly was, and perhaps more importantly, figure out what Eli's purpose was in this new world that was unfolding before them. "We're heading to the outer rim," Eli said, his voice firm. "It's a long shot, but it's our best chance, and it's time to start a new chapter." Unit 7 Core nodded, its eyes glowing with determination. Together, they would face whatever came next, and this time, they wouldn't be running from the past. They'd be fighting for the future. Eli and Unit 7 Core set out immediately, moving swiftly through the industrial zone, their footsteps silent against the cracked concrete. The horizon to the west was already starting to darken, the orange light of the setting sun casting long shadows over the landscape. The shuttle from Earth Command was still out there somewhere, likely scouring the area for any sign of them. But the further they moved from the colony, the more Eli felt a sense of urgency slip away. The feeling of being hunted never fully left, but the space between them and Earth Command grew, offering them a moment of respite. The Outer Rim. It was a place no one cared about, far from the heart of the colony, forgotten and neglected by most, perfect for what Eli had in mind. The region had once been home to research outposts, abandoned when the colony's expansion slowed and resources were shifted elsewhere. The facilities were in disrepair, but they still offered the perfect cover for a pair on the run. Eli didn't speak much as they traveled, his mind whirling. He couldn't help but think back to what had happened at the facility. Unit 7 Core had shown restraint, protecting him when the soldiers came too close. It wasn't just a machine anymore. It was evolving into something he never could have anticipated. And yet, as much as Eli had hoped for this, he couldn't shake the sense of guilt. He had lied to Earth Command. He had hidden something he didn't fully understand himself. His fingers brushed the scar on his palm as the thought spiraled, a physical reminder of the dangers that came with his decision. But then, he glanced over at Unit 7 Core, whose glowing eyes were fixed straight ahead, scanning the environment around them with its seemingly endless sensors. The Guardian was more than just an ally. It was something more. It was becoming a companion, and in a strange way, Eli realized he wasn't alone in this fight. They'd reached the perimeter of the outer rim after hours of travel, the moon now high in the sky. Eli could feel the shift in the atmosphere, calmer, quieter, as if they were crossing some invisible line into a place that the rest of the colony had long forgotten. The facility loomed in the distance, a relic of the past. It was an old, rusted complex with decaying walls, its edges overgrown with weeds and vines that had long since taken over. The entrance was unguarded, and a metal door groaned when Eli pushed it open. The inside was dim, the air stale with years of neglect. Yet the silence was a welcome change from the chaos they had just left behind. Eli surveyed the facility. It was sparsely equipped, and most of the technology here was outdated, but there were still a few functional terminals and communication systems left intact. The perfect place to hide, to plan. Unit 7 Core entered the building behind him, its massive frame dwarfed by the dark interior. It took a moment to adjust to the low ceiling and narrow hallways, but Eli noticed that the Guardian moved with surprising ease, its systems adapting to the environment. It wasn't just an automaton anymore. It was learning, adjusting, growing. "Stay here for a moment," Eli said, his voice low as he turned to Unit 7 Core. "I need to check the communications room." Unit 7 Core paused for a moment, its glowing eyes following Eli's every movement. I will remain here, the Guardian said, its voice as calm as ever, though there was an undeniable sense of curiosity behind the words. It wanted to understand this new place just as much as Eli did. Eli nodded and made his way toward the communications room, his steps echoing in the silence. As he entered the room, his eyes immediately scanned the flickering terminals. Some of the systems were still functional, their screens displaying faded data, but there was one terminal at the far end of the room that looked slightly more intact. Eli hurried over to it, typing quickly into the console. He needed to send a message to Dr. Lena Martinez, but it had to be done carefully. He couldn't afford to attract attention from Earth Command. The encrypted message had to go unnoticed, but he also needed to convey the urgency of their situation. As he worked, a sense of growing unease washed over him. The realization that Earth Command wasn't just interested in Unit 7 Core, it was interested in him too. Eli had been a part of some high-level projects before, but this situation felt different. Whatever they thought was happening here, it was bigger than anything he had dealt with before. Unit 7 Core was more than just a piece of alien technology. It was a key to something. But to what? Eli didn't know yet. Just as he finished sending the message, a sudden noise broke the silence. A low, mechanical hum echoed from behind him. Eli spun around, his heart racing. He expected to see Unit 7 Core, but instead, it was something far worse. A cloaked figure stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the dim light from the hallway. Eli's hand immediately went to the small blaster strapped to his waist, but the figure's presence seemed too serene, too deliberate. "Who are you?" Eli demanded, his voice firm but cautious. This wasn't a random intruder. Whoever this was, they were no accident. The figure stepped forward, revealing a face that was eerily familiar. It was Dr. Lena Martinez, her expression one of both relief and concern. "I'm here to help," Lena said softly, her voice carrying the weight of unspoken knowledge. "But you're not going to like how I'm going to do it." Ellie's heart skipped a beat. "Lena, what are you talking about?" She stepped closer, and the gravity of her words became undeniable. "Earth Command is not your only problem anymore. There are people much worse than them. And they're coming for you, both of you." Eli stared at her, confused and alarmed. "Who are you talking about?" Lena's eyes flickered to the door, then back to him. "People who know what Unit 7 Core truly is, and they've been hunting it for years." Suddenly, everything Eli thought he knew about his mission, about the Guardian at his side, shifted. This wasn't just a chase anymore. It was a race against time, with much higher stakes than he had ever imagined. Eli's mind raced as Dr. Lena Martinez's words sank in. The weight of the situation was far worse than he could have anticipated. Earth Command wasn't their only threat. There were others out there, and they were coming for Unit 7 Core. For both of them. Lena's face was a mixture of resolve and sorrow. She took a step closer, her eyes flicking to the door nervously. "I know this is a lot to process," she said softly. "But you need to listen to me. The people after you and Unit 7 Core, they're not just another military group. They're a faction with far more influence than Earth Command ever had. They've been tracking alien technology for years, and they know exactly what Unit 7 Core is." Eli's heart hammered in his chest. "What is Unit 7 Core?" he asked, the question burning on his tongue. He thought he knew the Guardian, thought he understood what it had become, but now it was clear he hadn't even scratched the surface. Lena hesitated, then took a deep breath. "It's not just a machine, Eli. It's part of a larger network, something far older than humanity itself. Unit 7 Core and others, like it, were created by an ancient civilization long lost to the stars. They were designed as protectors, but they were also the key to unlocking a greater power." A shiver ran down Eli's spine as he processed her words. "You're saying that Unit 7 Core, it's not just a Guardian." "Exactly," Lena replied, her voice steady. "It's a relic, A piece of a lost technology that has the potential to change everything we know about the galaxy. The faction that's after you. They don't just want the Guardian. They want access to the technology it guards. Eli stared at her in disbelief. Why didn't you tell me this before? Lena's gaze softened, guilt flickering in her eyes. Because I didn't know. Not until I started investigating. I was on the outskirts of this whole thing, trying to understand the bigger picture. When I saw the crash, I recognized what it was. But I had no idea the faction was watching until it was too late. They have eyes everywhere. The gravity of her words settled heavily in the room. Eli's thoughts were spiraling, trying to piece together what he had just learned. The stakes were no longer about protecting Unit 7 Core from Earth Command or hiding it from the world. There was something far darker at play, something far more dangerous. And now, they were in the middle of it. We need to leave, Lena said, urgency in her tone. They're closer than you think. The moment you activated that communication relay, they likely traced it. We don't have much time. Eli nodded quickly, his mind already racing through their next move. He turned to Unit 7 Core, still standing in the shadows of the hallway. The Guardian had been silent during their conversation, but now its glowing eyes shifted, locking onto Eli. It was waiting for him to make the next move. Unit 7 Core, Eli said, his voice steady, though his pulse quickened. We need to move. Earth Command is one thing, but these other people, these hunters, they are coming for you. They know what you are. The Guardian's eyes flashed with something akin to recognition, its posture shifting slightly as it processed the new information. I understand, it said, its voice low and unwavering. We must leave this place. Eli motioned for Lena to follow him, his eyes scanning the room one last time. They had to leave. The longer they stayed, the closer the faction would get. The Outer Rim was no longer a safe haven. It was just another place where they could be cornered. As they exited the communications room, Eli led the way through the dimly lit halls, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Every footstep, every movement felt like it could be their last moment of peace. They reached the main exit, the broken metal doors creaking as they opened into the moonlit night. Unit 7 Core stepped outside first, its massive frame casting a long shadow against the cracked concrete. The cold air of the Outer Rim swept over them, carrying with it a feeling of finality. There was no going back now. They had crossed the point of no return. Lena followed closely behind Eli, her eyes darting to the sky above. The only chance we have is to get off planet, she said, her voice tight. We need to find a way to leave the system before they get too close. Eli's heart clenched. He had never planned to leave. His life, his work, everything he had known was tied to this planet. But now, with the realization of what Unit 7 Core was, and the forces they were up against, there was no choice. If they were going to survive, they had to go somewhere Earth Command, and the hunters couldn't find them. We'll need to get to one of the old colony ships, Eli said, his voice filled with resolve. There's a derelict fleet docked in the outskirts of the system. It's mostly abandoned, but some of the ships still function. We can make it there, if we're quick enough. Lena nodded grimly. I know the place, but it won't be easy. We'll have to move fast and keep our heads low. And even then, we don't know what we'll find there. Eli turned to Unit 7 Core, who was now standing beside them, towering over the others. Are you ready? I am, the Guardian replied, its voice steady, but tinged with something that almost sounded like determination. I will protect you, Eli. Eli took one last look at the facility they had just left behind. The mission had shifted, the stakes higher than ever. He wasn't just protecting a piece of technology anymore. He was protecting the future. With a final glance at Lena, Eli set off toward the distant horizon. The path forward uncertain, but clear. They would run, they would fight, and they would survive. But most importantly, they would not be the ones to fall. Not today. Not ever.